By now, you've probably heard that bone broth is one of the most healing and nourishing foods available. Grandma's chicken soup didn't make you feel better just because it was comforting. But store-bought broths are often diluted, and they cost so much more than making it yourself. Not to mention, unless you're super careful about label reading, there are often high levels of MSG, and if you've noticed, they're often frequently very thin. And you want them to be gelatinous. That's the healing part of broth. But the great news is that bone broth is crazy simple to make, super inexpensive, and it requires very little hands-on time. So today I'm going to walk you through step by step how to make bone broth. Let's dive in. Okay, first you have to decide what kind of bones you want to use for yours. Today, I'm going to be making chicken broth, and I'm going to show you how to do this with a whole raw chicken. You can reuse bones that have already been cooked. You can save them and use those. You can also make bone broth with beef bones, lamb bones, pork bones. If the animal had bones, likely you can make it. Fish stock is great. I love to use chicken because when you use a whole raw chicken like this to make your stock with, you then have cooked meat as well that you can freeze for later uses or use for chicken tacos or chicken salad, whatever you want to do, and it falls off the bone so easily. So this whole chicken, this one is organic. Of course, you want to use organic when you can, and pastured and local is even better if you have this, or if you have that available. This is Mary's free-range chicken. It is from our natural grocers. It was $10.99 for the entire chicken, and it's going to give us several meals and a whole lot of broth. You want to make sure that as you're getting started, you have all of your ingredients nearby and they're super easy and accessible. So of course you want your bones, in this case, the chicken. You want some apple cider vinegar. This is going to help pull the minerals from the bones and really make sure that your bone broth is mineral rich. And then you want to use your vegetables. Now, if you wanted to, you could chop up some fresh carrots, celery, onion, and use that. Honestly, what I do is I have these frozen, gosh, that's loud. I have these frozen bags of veggie scraps that we keep, put that down so it's not so loud, that we keep in our freezer. I just keep an empty Ziploc bag in there, and then anytime I'm chopping up vegetables, I cut off the ends of carrots, ends of peppers, the peels of the onion, and the peel of the garlic and things. So you can see all different veggies in there. We end up with a lot of onion and with a lot of garlic ends, and then just whatever vegetables we happen to be cooking with recently, which is also fun because then it gives you a little bit of variety in both the nutrients and the flavor that goes into your broth each time. So you want your veggie scraps, you want your apple cider vinegar, raw and unfiltered is what you're looking for with that. This is the Kirkland brand. You can also find it at any grocery store, the Bragg's version at most grocery stores. And then Celtic sea salt is my favorite sea salt to use. Real salt is another great one. You could use pink Himalayan salt if you wanted to. This one just has so many great minerals in it as well. I like to keep that handy. Bay leaves, it's great to add a couple of those for spices, and you can honestly add whatever spices you want. So make it your own. I'll throw in a little bit of pepper. Sometimes I would use peppercorn. It really just depends on my mood, honestly. All right, so we have all of our ingredients. Oh, last but not least, you want good filtered water. So I am partial to my Berkey right here. This Berkey will filter out. We have a fluoride filter in here too, so it removes the fluoride from the water. It removes the chlorine and all the other gross chemicals and things that show up in tap water that you really don't want to be consuming. As you can see, I also had saved the gizzard and the neck of the chicken. Sometimes your Giblet package will include that in the chicken, sometimes it's not in there. So pick and choose what you want. I have added more things the more comfortable I have become making broth. and using some different things. I'm also going to throw a couple chicken feet in there that you can get usually. If you get your chicken from a local farmer, or if you have a farmer's market, often you can find chicken feet that way. Sometimes even if there's a butcher at your grocery store, you can get them from the butcher. Adding things like the neck and the chicken feet are going to create a more gelatinous broth for you, and it's going to be a little bit thicker and more nourishing. So our chicken feet actually come frozen in a bag like this. I will recommend that if you are making a chicken soup and using chicken feet, and you're going to want to consume the vegetables and everything and not strain them at that time, that you put your chicken feet inside of a cheesecloth and wrap it up inside the cheesecloth, because feel free to skip this part too if you get queasy. I wouldn't touch chicken feet for a couple years. I cooked with them, but I managed to not have to touch them. So as you can see, they have nails on them, and so you don't want those nails falling off into your chicken soup. I just found that if I wrap them in cheesecloth, you don't have to worry about that. You also don't have to touch them once they get heated. And if you just have like you can do 2 to 4 feet per broth, depending on how much water you're going to put in your stock pot. So once your chicken and whatever bones you are planning to use are in your stock pot, I just literally put it right inside of here. Okay, the neck, the gizzard, and the chicken. I save the livers for pate. Then you don't have to buy chicken liver. If you save them, you can freeze them. And I just freeze a whole bunch of them, and when I get several, I make pate with that. But you can also save the kidneys if you want for dirty rice. My husband's been asking me to do that. I'm building up my organ meat stomach. Slowly but surely. So once you have that in there, you're going to, I always shake my apple cider vinegar. And friends, don't be intimidated by having to have exact measurements, but I give it just a couple glugs. I like to eliminate having to do more dishes than necessary. So that's what I do. Ideally, you want to fill it until it covers the chicken and maybe has just a little bit, like half an inch above. So you have your water, you have your bones, and you have the apple cider vinegar. Now, you can leave that for about 30 minutes if you'd like to. If you don't have the time, don't want to time it, it's also not a completely necessary step. It's an extra step. And this is why I love having things chopped up, ready to go. Onions, carrot peels, cabbage ends are all in there. A variety of veggies and their minerals. Oops. And then you're going to add some salt. Like I said, completely up to you. If you are using good mineral salt, like Celtic sea salt, real salt, pink Himalayan salt, no need to be stingy on it. You want all of those good minerals and nutrients coming in there. So I usually do about 3 tablespoons-ish. I'm gonna add some pepper, and I'm not gonna do as much pepper. Like probably, because I have ends of green peppers and jalapenos and stuff in here, I'm gonna do maybe a teaspoon and a couple bay leaves, if we can get them open. Frequently I'll add thyme or rosemary to it as well. However, when I don't have any, like now, I'll use some Thyme Vitality essential oil, and I'll just add probably 2 drops, because a little bit goes a long way. And you're honestly not going to get the a lot of the benefits of the oil itself because you're going to be heating it so high, but you'll get the flavor in there, which is what I'm looking for right now. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to bring it up to a boil. I'm going to go ahead and start. To get it to boil a little quicker, all you need to do is put your lid on there. Once this comes to a roaring boil, we're going to skim the top and turn it down to a simmer. So as you can see, as it begins to start boiling, that there is a kind of a scum that comes to the top right here, and that's what you're wanting to skim off. And you're going to simmer it for 12 to 24 hours with chicken broths. If you are making beef broth, you want to go 24 to 48 hours. And lamb broth is kind of in between. I usually shoot for about 24 hours with that. If you are more comfortable doing this, in a crock pot overnight, you can absolutely positively do that. It works well in the crock pot as well. Also, if you are using beef bones, you want to make sure that they're not raw. Beef bones will have kind of a funny taste if you do the broth raw. You want to use cooked beef bones. So if you get bones straight from the butcher or from your farmer, then just throw them on a baking rack and cook them for about 20 to 40 minutes. Just want to bake them and get them cooked a little bit. Alright, here we are, day 2. Note, I turned off this stock pot about an hour and a half ago. Okay, I don't like to work with my stock when it is crazy hot because then I'm worried about burning my fingers. So I like to let it cool just a little bit. I took the lid off of it and usually I go about an hour and a half or so, but today I let it go to 2 hours. You want to make sure you have on hand a giant bowl and a colander, a fine sieve. I like to have a funnel, another mesh strainer, and this, I double strain mine. You don't have to double strain yours at all. You could totally just do it at one time. Like I said though, I just do it that way. This fits right inside of my mason jar. I like the 2-quart mason jars, whatever you would like to store it in. Frequently, I will store it first in my mason jars, refrigerate it until it's cold, and then I will store some of it in Ziploc bags in our freezer and freeze those flat so that then they can be stored vertically in the freezer. Step 1, you're going to strain your broth. Now, I'm going to take this and dump it slowly. I have learned from experience to be careful how much I dump in here and keep an eye on, how full my bowl is. You don't want to overflow it on accident. Usually when it gets to about this point and you have most of the broth poured into the strainer, that's when I'll reach in and grab the chicken. When I grab it, and you will notice, likely, depending on how long yours was cooked, it might fall apart. Mine's fallen apart, and I'm going to put it there. I am going to take the meat off of that chicken at the end of all of this. I guess then I have a whole bunch of chicken for meals. But I will also save the bones. So I'm not going to toss the neck or anything because I'm going to save those to do a second round of stock. You can get usually 2 good rounds of bone broth out of one set of bones. You guys, this totally used to freak me out. Chicken thigh! I never would have touched that a few years ago. Never. Okay, so then I just kind of shake the strainer to get any of the excess liquid out of there. Then I'm going to take that and dump it straight into the trash can. Oops. Like I said, I put my funnel in there and then I stick this strainer on top of it. And I usually make sure that's laying on something so it doesn't fall out. Okay. Then I'm going to pick up, because I want to show you what this looks like. Oops, and you can't see it through my bowl here. So rich color. Yeah, so if you're going to freeze in these, you want to make sure there is a freeze line to fill down to. I usually would fill it about, I don't know if you can see that though. I would usually fill it to about here. There is that frozen line that's up here too though. I just like to go a little under it. Here in Colorado, I would go even less. Sometimes it works, sometimes it breaks. It's a gamble, but depending on what you want to freeze in. Like I said, once it's cool, I'm not worried about freezing it in plastic. It's when it's hot that I don't want that to pull any of the toxins out of the plastic. So, oops. Can you see how dark this is? Isn't that beautiful? Hold it up. Absolutely beautiful. It's nice and thick. You can see the gelatinousness of it. If you were making this in a stock pot and your 12 to 24 hours goes overnight, I mean, clearly if you're doing 24 hours, it would go overnight. But if you are uncomfortable leaving your stovetop on, which for some reason I'm comfortable with a gas stove or electric stove, makes me very nervous. We've just had more issues with the burners turning off and things. So what you can do is called the cumulative time method. And this is what I did last night. You leave it covered. You turn off the heat, leave it covered, leave it out. When you turn it back on, you want to bring it back up to a boil and boil it for about 5 to 7 minutes at a roaring boil. Keep it going there. Then you repeat what you did at the very beginning, skimming off any of the impurities that rise to the top. Get rid of those, and you can reduce it back down to a simmer, and you add together however much time you cooked it originally, and then from the simmer there. And the cumulative time can be 12 to 24 hours, and that will work. And the boiling destroys any sort of bacteria or anything that may have developed as the heat wasn't on it the night before. You have safe broth to consume. It is still delicious. So that's what we did last night. We'll throw the lid on the broth, put it into the fridge, and it will cool all the way. And then tomorrow I will freeze it. It made us a little over a gallon. So we have that plus this little bit extra here. Decent amount of broth. $10 for the chicken. Now I have chicken meat. I have a gallon plus of broth. Freeze it in small sizes. You can also freeze it if you wanted to, like in an ice cube tray as well. You don't have to do a plastic bag or a glass. You could freeze it in an ice cube tray and have individual little sizes to pop out when you need just a little bit of broth for a recipe as well. I love to use bone broth in place of water in rice and quinoa and that sort of thing. Cooking any sort of greens, it works great for that. And of course, this is a base for soup. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them down in the comment section below. If this video was helpful, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notified every time that a new video goes live. Take Take care, friends.